All right, I am settled in and ready to go. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to I'm scared. And, uh, it's been kind of crazy. I have been recording a lot of these podcasts, and I've been trying to find a different way that kind of really suits me and comes to like how I look at it. So, I know a lot of you were expecting Fear Street to be coming out, and it will be coming soon. But what I've decided to do is kind of do like a commentary between watching the whole movie and you guys hearing me watch the whole movie, and we just kind of discuss it while we're there, which makes it kind of fun because if you're gonna be listening and you want to watch at the same time, guess what? It's like having your buddy there who's gonna be talking about it during the whole movie, maybe catching things off guard, so that way you don't get really that scared. So let's go ahead and start off. We're gonna be talking today just about Escape Room and then Escape Room, the Tournament of Champions. I recently watched those, and but let's go ahead and start off. So let's kick it off to the with the theme, and let's go on. And just like that, we are back in action. And you know what? If you've ever watched Escape Room and the second one, Escape Room, Tournament of Champions, you know what? We're going to be discussing just how fun escape rooms really are. I'm talking about like the fun as in the regular ones, not ones that kind of like lead to death, right? Because in all realities, we know there's no such thing as an escape room that is as extreme as these ones on the show, right? But uh, I've been to at least two escape rooms, and it's been super fun. Honestly, you get an hour to solve the riddle. You get someone who tells you what the story is, and you have to solve all the puzzles that are in the room within that time frame. And if you do it before and even faster, great. If you don't, you kind of get revealed what was missed and stuff like that. Kind of, you know what? In the first escape room, one of the characters actually describes that. Right? He's so far a pro of the normal escape rooms, and then he gets put into now these real escape rooms, and of course that brings your knowledge and your skill to test. And the one thing I hate, in all honesty, when it comes to horror films and thrillers, is that I don't know why they choose to have the expert die off, like always. We'll see a lot of other films and we'll discuss them. But what I always think is very interesting is that they the one who knows the most is the one who dies, which doesn't make any sense in all reality. Like, how is the newbie surviving this? It's kind of the same thing. Like, don't get me wrong, I love Harry Potter and I can rewatch it all the time, but it's the same thing. Like, this fool of a kid, Harry Potter, had no skill at all. Like, honestly, like if anybody could save the whole world against Voldemort, it would honestly be someone who has studied and is well versed in a lot of things, like Hermione, right? She obviously in her smarts knows a lot of things, but somehow just chance had him doing it, and then of course he became skilled. But someone who was already skilled and already knew all these things, it falls into like the same horror genre where you get these people who know exactly how to survive, exactly what to do in certain scenarios, and then something happens where they end up getting killed, and guess what? The one rookie, the person who doesn't know anything, is the one who's surviving and making it out alive. barely, and it's always bothered me in a lot of horror films that we're gonna be looking into. Uh, I meant the ones that always come into my mind is like 47 meters down, and then 47 meters down Uncaged. I did watch both, and I'll probably rewatch them again to go with the program here. But it's just very interesting that these these occasions always happen in horror films. So anyway, going back to it, normal escape rooms are pretty fun, and if you haven't done it, take the time to go with a group. It's always better to go with a group that you know. But if you're someone who's outgoing and you like to make friends easily, going with at least one person you know, or at least going by yourself and joining a group can also be fun as well. But you get this opportunity to kind of like test your brain, look at these puzzles. It's honestly really fun. But now let's flip to the genre of what we're talking about, which is this escape room, right? From the movie. You're getting a group of people who all survived. We're all sole survivors. And when I mean by sole survivors, if you haven't seen the movie, it just means that each one of the people that's in that room had an experience in their life that a lot of people ended up dead, and they were the only ones who lived, right? And so you get these people with this kind of like experience in their life, and they put them in a room, and then now they have to see if their situation of being the sole survivor was just pure luck, or was it chance, right? And so now you get these people into a room playing an escape room because these people have the pretty good intelligence to say the least. And the first room, it challenges them, but they're able to get through it, even though it's like super hot. They almost get burned. And they go on to the second room, which is super cold. And then there's always, in a lot of scary movies, we're always going to talk about this, there's always that one narcissist who is like a man for himself, doesn't care about everybody else. He, sorry, doesn't care about anybody else, only about himself and how he's going to survive, and he's willing to kill or do anything possible to be the one who lives, right? Yeah, those are all the genres that we see always in horror films, as well as the one nerdy person, not the one that's a know-it-all, but just someone who's nerdy, very quiet. You always get someone who's athletic, someone who is not as smart, but somehow is able to figure things out and survive. These genres will always come up when we're going to be discussing and watching these movies. So you get these group of people, surviving. But then again, this is where the second room I kind of got really upset, is because yes, everybody's selfish when it comes to survival of the fittest, right? Or surviving. You're trying to make sure you're okay, or you're surviving, rather than caring about anybody else, But this is where the knowledgeable guy of escape rooms ends up dying, which is just, for me, again, it's like, I don't know. If you can hear my frustration, it's just very rough to see someone so knowledgeable who's done several escape rooms and even intense ones where there's multiple rooms, die off on the second one, and it leaves everybody else to try to kind of fend for themselves, right? They kind of just realize, one, it's real, even though they already kind of knew it was real because the first room woke them up to the reality of what the escape room was. But the fact that they realize that they can actually die goes here. Well, they're able to get out of that one. Then they go to a room that ends up falling, and like the floor is falling, everything's upside down, and they start losing people one by one. And one of the main girls, who again is, like I said, that's the nerdy girl that's very quiet. She finds a way to kind of beat the system. And one of the guys that was there, and I apologize, I watched this a couple weeks ago, and I just haven't I had enough time to record, so I'm recording now. But the one guy who did win the game, he even beat the narcissistic man who was trying to kill him to survive. But the one who survived the game was about to get killed because, in all honesty, no company wants a survivor to go out and say, I survived this, help me out, right? Well, the nerd girl ends up finding a way out and helps him, and then they go out and they try to fight the company. They get the cops, but when they arrive to the location, everything's gone, right? So you're getting a girl from the army who died. There's like other like pretty good salesmen. So you have all these scenarios of people just passing away, but when they arrive to the location, it's empty. There's nothing there. But the only sign saying that it's not over, right? So then we see the two survivors finally kind of recover and are able to then say like, hey, let's try to live our lives. But the nerd girl is kind of like finally out of her shell and she wants to go for revenge. That's where we get the Tournament of Champions, right? Just because you see that at the end of the movie, they're preparing for her to do an escape room on a plane, right? And the good part is she opts out in the beginning of the second movie. She opts out to not do that plane and goes. They go driving, right? But somehow these people, I'm gonna be honest, like it gets pretty creepy, but yet it's also true of how much information people can have on us and as how much people know of our locations, our routes and stuff like that. Because even though they decided not to take the plane, when they made it to, I believe, if I remember, it was New York, they were like, okay, let's take the subway. And they had that prepared for every other person who won the other games that were played, right? So somehow everybody ended up on the same subway car without anything, like without being pushed, without saying like this is wrong. It just was a very random thing. I think if I remember, one of them, well, they did kind of get pushed, but still, they were still kind of forced there, right? And so it's just very interesting that you get these people kind of very good controlling to the point of getting now the Tournament of Champions, which is basically people that survived previous games of the escape room are now here to see who is the top escape room winner. And now they just have to try to escape these new trials. And this part is kind of, I feel like it would take so much to have prepared, and I'm not sure how realistic it can be that the company could have that much power. But yet again, if we look at politics and we look at all that stuff, I wouldn't be surprised. In all honesty, with power and with money, you can create a lot of things. But I feel like it was very elaborate in a very short amount of time. Like, they knew somehow everybody was going to make it to New York. Because a lot of them didn't even live in New York. And the other girl, they were more following her because she wanted to attack them. So I don't know. There's some plot holes there. And if it was explained before, go ahead. Let me know. Reach out to me. Again, my handles on and everything is at geos_thoughts. If something like this was different, and they explained it in the movie, let me know. Maybe I missed it when I was watching it. But there's like that plot hole. I just don't know how the other people ended up in the subway. Like, what were the reason? One of them was was his wife's birthday, and I think he lived in New York. But the other ones really didn't. And so, I don't know. Anyway, so now you're getting all these champions doing the same thing, trying to survive. The good part about, like, this type, at least the Tournament of Champions, was that because all of them had survived in the way that they had to survive, they at least tried to do everything possible to make sure everybody lived as as well as he could in a game that looked for no survivors, right? They weren't trying to beat anybody or like take control and try to just live there on their own. Everybody kind of worked together, which is kind of interesting when you see the scenario in how they had both groups, right? The sole survivors, they were honestly had that one person who just wanted to live himself. He didn't care if anybody else died as long as he lived. And then you have these champions who went through all the first set of games, and then now trying to make sure that everybody survived, because there is a way for everyone to live, right? And of course, with being the Tournament of Champions, the stakes were going to be higher. The challenges, the rooms were going to be a lot more difficult. So the people that are actually sponsoring this are, like, I guess, rich people who love to see torture, which goes back to, like, if I've watched Hostel once, and we'll probably watch it again. It's very gory. If you don't ever want to watch it, it's fine. Like I said, I'll watch it and we can kind of discuss it. But you get these rich people wanting people to suffer, and it's going back to, like, the olden days where they're like the gladiator time, right? You get the kings paying, like, peasants, or not paying peasants, but, like, forcing peasants to fight with each other. And so, like, Escape Room was kind of the same thing when it comes to the Tournament of Champions, was that they're just making it more elaborate. The one thing I wanted to get to the point is that I get they didn't want any survivor, and in the end, that's what you get. But it just kind of, it was predictable, right? She finally had the courage, the nerd girl, right? She finally got the courage to just leave it as is, and then finally say, you know what, let's just go home, let's fly, which was their plan all along, and they even stated there's no way out. So in the end, it's like, of course they didn't want anybody to kind of figure out what they were doing, and we still don't know who's really in charge of the company. But it was very predictable in one way that they wanted it to end, right? Like, it was just a way that they didn't want any sole survivors. So, in all honesty, it was interesting to see how these challenges were, how each room brought the challenge and how it was able to get out. But in all honesty, it wasn't something I would recommend. Honestly, I wouldn't say, hey, you should watch this, it's really cool. If you really want to watch it because you've played escape rooms, or you've done an escape room, you could, because then you can see just kind of how they have to think it through. But in all honesty, it wasn't really worth my time, but I watched it anyway just because it was one of the one on my list that I was looking at. So again, that was Escape Room and Escape Room Tournament of Champions. Like I said, it had some good stuff, but there's a lot of plot holes that I really wouldn't care. So, if anything, the other ones are going to be coming out. There's no other movie coming out, sorry. But I will be having all the other podcasts done and finished. Again, like I said, you can watch the show or the movie with me as I will be watching it and putting my commentary on it. You may hear it in the background a little bit, but I'll be watching the movie as I record. And so that way, if you want to watch it, guess what? We're going to have a full hour and a half together. We can talk like if we were sitting next to each other. But other than that, thank you guys, everybody, and see you guys next time.